Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast, where we focus on how authors found success, looking at strategies that have taken them to the top of the bestseller charts, as well as what they've learned from their mistakes. Because being an indie author is more than knowing the latest marketing trend. It's about being innovative and creative and learning from your mistakes.
Welcome to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. I'm Sara Rosette.
And I'm Jami Albright. And this week on the show we have
Tammi Labrecque.
Yes, y'all. Buckle up and get your pens ready because it is so good.
Yes.
So
much information all about newsletters, automations, reader magnets.
What to do with your newsletter if you haven't been handling it right. It's just so good. So good. Tammi is so stinking smart. She's one of the first people that I really went to, and she introduced me to David Gaughran, how you all know how I feel about David Gaughran. So, super smart.
Yes. And she has lots of ideas. So many suggestions and tips and ideas for, like, if you're stuck on how to get started. So lots of good stuff coming up.
Right. Yeah. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
So how are you?
Well, I'm okay. Yes. Today's November 2nd. So yesterday was a month, and, but it was okay. It was okay. Today was a little hard, but it was pretty good. I have started some ads, and they're actually doing okay. So that's good. That's probably the only writer thing I've done. But listening to Tammi, I did think, you know what? I could work on my automation. Like, that's pretty low creative. I mean, I have automations and they work, but they can be better, probably.
But you can refine them.
Yeah. And, they're pretty much the same automations I've had since I started. I just sort of change it as I go, with each book. So that's something I could work on. So I might do that this week and see. I'm at my mom's this week again, just helping with some, cleanup, and my brother-in-law is trying to sell the house because he wants to move to, closer to my mom and dad and for my niece. And so we're helping with that, and, but we did do Halloween, and I had pictures on my Facebook profile, and they're so fun. It was a really fun weekend. It was actually a birthday party for the four littles. The 4, 4, 3, and 2-year-old. And so my daughter's party planner, so it was such a party. But the costumes were hilarious. My husband and I were giraffes, and
okay, so now I have to go see that. I don't know how I missed that.
It was fun. It was fun. So that's about me. What's going on with you?
Okay, so I'm doing fulfillment for the Kickstarter.
Great.
So, yes, the digital rewards have gone out, and now I just have to do the physical print books and letters, and those are so close to being ready to go.
That's awesome.
So I'm really excited about that. Just like to finish that, like I feel like the end of it has been a learning curve just as much as the running it. So now I've kind of learned how, and I'm so afraid I'm going to mess something up because I hadn't used Backer Kick before. It's helps you keep track of everything, but it's a little complicated.
Oh,
and so I keep emailing their support, which they're very good. Keep emailing them and say, hey, am I doing this right? And they're like, yes, you're fine. Or, no, how about I do that for you? And I'm like, thank you. So,
that's great. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're really good. But speaking of Kickstarter, the Kickstarter Accelerator, Russell and Monica's program is open until November 23rd. And so that's the course that I took that kind of gave me the big overview.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's very detailed. It has, like, any question you have, there's an answer in there. And if it's not in there, you can message them through their groups and they'll answer you. So I'll have that link in the show notes.
Yeah.
So,
and it's affiliate link. So just so you know. Yeah. I think that's awesome. I think that.
So I would definitely say, if you're thinking about it, that's probably a good thing to try out. And I've been doing that. Getting back into writing a little bit. I feel like I'm coming back to the surface after being submerged in Kickstarter for a while. Yeah. And then just like all kinds of like thinking about holidays and, if we're traveling and, getting all that sorted out. So
yeah, us too.
All I got going on. So yeah.
Yeah, I know. I can't believe it's November.
It's
crazy.
Fast. But time change. The last time change we supposedly will ever have happens Sunday. Because I guess, the last fallback. We still have to spring forward one more time.
Yeah.
And then we'll be done.
Then we'll be done.
Which is, I'm happy about.
Yeah. Only 100 years too late, but whatever.
Amen.
Anyway, well, we should get on with the interview because y'all, it's long. I mean, it's a good meaty interview. So you're going to want to listen and we'll get on and make this short. So
all right.
Y'all have a good day.
Yeah, so here's Tammi. Well, today we are so excited to talk to Tammi Labrecque. Hi, Tammi. How are you?
I'm good. Glad to be here.
We're so happy you're here. We have lots of questions.
We do. We're going to talk about newsletters, but first let me read your bio and then we'll get started.
Okay.
Tammi Labrecque lives in central Maine with 3 spoiled cats, 2 neurotic dogs, and dozens of fictional characters that keep her awake at night. She writes under a few pen names across several genres, including urban fantasy, thriller, and lit RPG. Under her own name, you can find her writing romance novels that no one reads or teaching at newsletterninja.net.
That's great.
That's
great.
me.
That's her. That's her doing a lot of things.
Too many things.
All at one time. Yeah. So we've known Tammi for a while. We met at the Smart Artist. The first one, right?
Yeah. I think so.
Nope, the second one. I didn't go to the first one.
Yeah, the second one.
So that's like 2016 or something. 2017?
2017 would be the second one. Yeah. Yeah. So it's
back in
been
the
a long
dark
time.
ages of indie publishing.
Yeah. Well, we've got a lot's happened since then. So tell us how you got into writing, Tammi.
I have always written. I know that that's the standard answer, but like for real, I've always written. I was obviously a voracious reader as a kid, as most writers I know. Started writing stories when I was very little and they were pretty terrible, as you would imagine. But the more you read, the more you kind of understand like how a story works. It's the only thing I ever wanted to do. So I got, my first traditional publishing credit. You can't see it obviously, but it's the contract is hanging on the wall behind me because I got to rest on those laurels. In 1994 for a short story in a really difficult market, which I did not realize, or I probably wouldn't have submitted. So that like early validation, given my crippling imposter syndrome, that early validation actually carried me an astonishingly long way. Like like through all the years when I was doing, because this was the dark ages, so I was doing like queries and stuff. Even through all of that, I was just like, I know I can write. So it's just a matter of getting it together. And then indie publishing came along. I was keeping an eye on that. Like, oh, maybe I'll do that. This is like 2012-ish. And then I got fired from my job at the end of 2014, October 2014, in fact. And I thought, well, instead of just getting another crappy office job, what if I just went for it? Like, and I did. It was lean for a little while, as you can imagine. But by the end of the following spring, so like April, May-ish of the following year, that would be 2015, I was supporting us just with our writing.
Yeah.
Then I did the thing where I took on some side jobs and the writing income went down, and that's a trend that is very hard to reverse. And so my writing has really fallen by the wayside. And I actually took 2013 off from writing entirely to build up the Newsletter Ninja kind of brand, which I had been neglecting. So that's what I am. 2022, I'm just a ninja. January, I'm back on Scrivener. I'm excited.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's exciting. Yeah, Tammi, you worked for Sterling and Stone.
I did briefly in 2017.
But also, I mean, you're just kind of one of those people that knows things, I think. I've always that's what I've always known. Like when I started, and I remember messaging you and saying, hey, my book, like the first 6 weeks or something, was doing great. No, about 4 weeks. It was doing really great. And then it dropped. And then all of a sudden it came back and was doing really great. And I messaged you and I was like, what is happening? And you said, you probably have just gotten in the Amazon algorithm, and that's what's carrying you. And I think that was true. And then also she told me the second best thing I've ever heard was when you are setting up your book report, set it to 0.004. So, but I think because I did say, oh my gosh, like it dropped, and you were like, change that book report immediately. And it was great advice.
It didn't drop, really friend. That money was an illusion. Yeah. Those were tough times, man. Yeah. Now things have obviously pretty much stabilized, and we kind of know where it is, lower than we'd like, but we know. But back in the day, it was really volatile, and everybody would cry on the 29th,
So
funny.
The olden days.
The olden days.
Yeah. Well, what is your definition of success?
Oh, that is a tough one. It's both tough and not tough. Honestly, and my definition of success is going to feel very underwhelming, maybe to a lot of your listeners, but I would actually ask them to think about it. Yeah. In a world where, in a space in indie publishing, in a world where we hear a lot about 6-figure authors and people who launched a #1 in the store and all of that, it's really easy to let your head get super messed up and think about that as success. And that is super successful. And if it happened to me, I would work it out. Yeah. Well, look at this. But to me, honestly, success for me is just enough. Having enough is all that I care about. All I want to do is, frankly, not have to get a job where I punch a time clock and do what somebody else tells me. Right. So, and enough is going to vary for different people. If you're trying to write your husband or your wife out of their day job so that they can stay home and help you with the business or whatever, your needs are bigger. If you live in New York City, your enough is larger. I live in central Maine. It's pretty low cost of living here. I no longer have to take care of kids, although I'll tell you that college bill is something.
Shock there, isn't it?
Although, given what I was feeding her before she left, maybe it comes out in the wash. Right. But enough is lower for me than some people might expect. And I don't need to be a 6-figure author. I can be a 5-figure author. Is totally fine. Right. So for me, success very much is, where do you get to the point where you're not worried about sustaining yourself and you can continue to do the thing that you're doing at a pace that works without burning out and all of that. It's just enough for me is what success is.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I love that. I am working on being more positive, and you don't know how negative you are until you start trying to be more positive. And but that is really true. And I've talked about that with my sister and everything. Is that I had enough to be able to be with her, and for me, there's nothing more successful than that. And so, I love that, and I do think that it would help our mental health a lot if we kind of sat with that for a while.
I believe in it so strongly. And part of that, of course, is because I'm an absolute acolyte of Becca Syme, who I know you guys know. And Becca talks a lot about sustainability and burnout. And it was actually Becca who, I'm not even going to lie, kind of saved me when I had this horrific burnout in 2019. I canceled a book. I canceled the second Newsletter Ninja book. I was launching something like every month, not a book, mind you, but like a Newsletter Ninja thing, mostly like every month for like 2 years. And I just had a straight up kind of breakdown. And Becca was just like, you got to just stop working, which I don't think is a thing she says very often, but like, just stop. And the burnout was real. The stress was real. I was definitely the definition of working harder, not smarter. I wish, here we go. Here's the title. I wish I had known that like there was a way to leverage things a little better. And, Becca kept telling me that there's a way to leverage your ninja situation so that when you get back to fiction, you can do a little bit better. And I was like, no, there isn't, Becca. No, there isn't. Yeah, there is. Of course there is. Becca's always right. Yeah. So, I think that burnout situation is so common among people who are striving to meet some kind of goal that they think they see other people making. Right. And it's awful. And I'd also caution people to remember that you don't know what's behind that success. #1 on Amazon can be because, for reasons you don't understand, a gazillion people just bought your book, but it can also be because you're spending 70% of your income on ads. Right. You don't know how that person is there. So just keep your eyes on your own paper and do whatever gets you enough.
Yeah.
Well, that's the reason we asked this question, is because the definition of success for everyone is different. And we've had tons of different answers on this, but it's like, it is easy to fall into the money, this level of money equals this certain amount of success. And so that's why we asked this, because I was thinking about this the other day. We've had so many different authors on that do part-time, they do subscription, they do Patreon, they have all these different ways that they achieve their goals. And I was like, it's very cool that there is such a variety of ways.
Yeah.
It really is. Yeah. I have a ton of students. I do one-on-one clients as well, but I only have a handful of those people, like whose automations and things I design and install for them. But mostly I have courses, and I have students come through, and they're at just every level you can possibly imagine. Yeah. I have students come through who are just they're real good, and they're just maybe going to get a little tweak. And then I have students come through who don't know what's going on. Right. Great. I'm happy to help them. I have people who have, like you said, Patreons, because they've got some specialized niche and they know that readers will want more info about that from them. I've had a student who writes about Russian fairy tales. And so he's got a whole Patreon where he actually talks just about those instead of incorporating them into a story, stuff like that. People who make a ton of money, people who don't make any money. And I'll tell you, the money does not necessarily make people happier once you get past the point of not worrying about being homeless. Right. Money can, in fact, buy happiness if you don't have any. But there's a point at which it's just more.
Very, very true.
Although if I had it, like I said, I'd figure out how to spend it. I'd work it out.
Right. It's a problem you could deal with, right?
Right. And we should say, like, Tammi had what we're talking about when we say newsletter ninja. If you've never heard of Tammi, which is hard to believe, but I mean, she has 2 books, Newsletter Ninja, How to Become an Author Mailing List Expert, and the second book, Newsletter Ninja 2, If You Give a Reader a Cookie, Supercharge Your author mailing list with a perfect reader magnet. So, I mean, that's what we're talking about. I mean, I just like, hello, did we even say that? I don't think so.
I don't know. We didn't.
We're a little bit out of practice. We're a little out of practice. So
that's okay.
So that's what we're talking about.
That's me. That's what I am. I am apparently a newsletter ninja, which is not a thing I christened myself. I feel like calling yourself a ninja is a little, I think probably the only thing worse would be to like call yourself a guru, which is the worst word in the universe. And I hate it.
I've called myself a guru.
Oh, well, Jami, stop it. Gurus are the worst.
You are a ninja though with newsletters. You have fantastic ideas.
Yeah. One of my kind of, when you're like working on a sales page, which is to the point of how I neglected my business, I just learned how to do last year, and I'm still not great at it. Yeah. There's, you kind of have like little hooks there. And my 2 big hooks there are, you're an author, not a marketer, and your newsletter can't be your full-time job. Right. Because that's what I hear from people who show up. They're like, I don't want to learn marketing. I want to write books, and then I got to have this newsletter. Right. And the other one is, you don't need a guru, you need a ninja. Like you do not need the wise man, I guess you'd call him, on the mountain, teaching you everything about everything. You just need someone that'll get in, some ninja stars, take care of your one problem, and get the hell out like an assassin. Yeah. That's what you need. Yeah, probably couldn't call myself an assassin because then they wouldn't let me be on Facebook or whatever. So we went with ninja.
Ninja's better. Yeah,
that's what I am. Plus, I've got that avatar, which is like the gift that he's not giving, man. Yeah. He's so cute. He's
super cute.
God bless my cover designer for that guy.
Oh, that's great. So, well, we talked about what you wish you'd known about writing and craft, but let's talk about what you wish you'd known about marketing and things like that when you started.
Well, that's actually, wow. So here's the thing. I worked for Sterling & Stone back in 2017, which was very fortunate for me because it gave me a pretty wide exposure to the indie community. They came to know who I was. Right. So even after I was no longer working for Sterling & Stone, like when people would say my name, folks still knew who I was. So God bless. Mm-hmm. But when I left, one of the things I thought I could do was to teach people some of the stuff I had learned playing with their catalog. They, as people may know, have massive catalog across a ton of genres. Right. And so I had learned a lot working on their advertising, their launches, and their newsletters. So I started out teaching actually little kind of mini classes on those three things: newsletters, advertising, like Amazon ads. And I guess I did all three kinds of ads, but whatever. And launches. So, but here's the thing. Advertising obviously got insanely hard and crazy expensive. And launches got super unpredictable. Like when I was talking about them in 2017 and 2018, you could do some really reliable things and you would get some really reliable results. Now I'm like, I don't know. I hope someone in your genre sends you out to their newsletters because I don't know any other way. So essentially I was like, I'm not comfortable teaching those things because if you can't produce results in them, why would you teach? Right. And people see my ranks. So, I mean, it's a bit much for me to be out there going, I'll teach you how to sell books. Yeah. So instead I said, I'll teach you how to write good newsletters, because when I was publishing with my steamy pen name, publishing very erratically, I'm a very slow writer. I had a lot of other side jobs. She had like a serial, an unfinished serial, and by the end, one like regular novel sized book. But she had an email list of like 12,000 people who had crazy good open rates, crazy good replies. And while I didn't really have any books to sell them, I was an absolute darling on the newsletter swap market, because I was going to deliver you 500, 600, 700 clicks reliably. And so I was like, oh, I guess I'm kind of good at this thing. It comes very naturally to me. People will ask me for advice about a problem. Like, who knew you were going to be good at newsletters? Like, what a weird thing. But people will say, I have this problem. Here's what I don't know or can't do with my newsletter. And I'll say, oh, well, have you tried X? And then they'll say, where did you hear that? And I'm like, I made it up in my head. So I was like, okay, obviously there's some kind of intuitive thing here. And over the years, what I've decided, honestly, is it's because I have ADHD, and I have that ADHD ability to become hyper focused and perseverate on things. So I am a super fan of stuff. I'm not lukewarm about anything. I like Doctor Who, and I like it more than most of everyone. And I really like The Good Place, and I was their biggest fan. And I become this crazy super fan of things. So when it comes to using your newsletter to kind of turn people into crazy super fans, I know how to do that. Because that's who I am, is the crazy super fan. So I just started helping people, and then I blew up that course, and then I wrote the book in 2018, which sold so much better than I could ever have expected. I truly did not imagine that. Huge shout out to David Gaughran, who I know was a champion for that book, and it helped a lot. Because his audience is vast and crazy, and it's just gone upward from there. But like I said, I neglected it a lot. So what I wish I had known was, from the beginning, I wish I had known how powerful it could be that people were listening to me, and that if I learned more about business and marketing, I could really have done something with it. I guess the thing I wish I'd known is that I didn't have to be ashamed of the fact that I wasn't making a full-time living from writing, but instead I was doing this other thing, because it was such a source of, honestly, shame for me that I just like didn't want to talk about it, and kind of only launched a course when the money ran low. And like, it was a whole thing. This past year, since I started late summer, really like taking courses about things and learning how to write sales pages and actually structure a course instead of my loosey-goosey nonsense and whatever. The business has improved so much. I'm really proud of everything I'm putting out. I made more in the last 12 months. It's still not a lot, guys. Don't think I'm going to retire to Cabo, but I made more in the last 12 months than I did probably in the 4 years previous. I'm not even.
That's fabulous.
I wish I had known that I didn't have to be ashamed, that it was okay to supplement with something else.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me ask you a couple of questions, because you talked about how people would ask you questions and say, help me with this. So what are the most common questions that you would hear? What are the most common problems people have with their newsletters?
Well,
how long do you have?
Here's another I wish I'd known, because wow, this whole thing turned out to be a really good title. I was like, there's nothing I wish I knew, which is a very arrogant thing to say, but it turns out there's plenty. I wish I had known to really listen to people when they ask me and tell me what they want. Because I have actually spent a great deal of time trying to create content for people, courses, mini courses. I have like a planner that you can download. I have a bunch of stuff that people can avail themselves of. And then people would say to me, that's awesome. What I really would like is, I just don't know what to write. Can you just tell us what to write? And I'd be like, no, you're an author. You know how to write. You don't need me for that part. Here's another cool course I made.
Yeah.
And people would go, that's awesome. I love this course. Do you think you could tell us what to write in our emails? So for like 5 years, I've been like, you guys don't need that. That's nonsense. And that's one of the reasons this is such an awesome time to be appearing here, is that I am actually launching something that's going to tell you what to write in your email.
That's awesome.
So I finally decided to listen to what people told me. So that is the number one question I get. What do I write? I sit down, the page is blank, and I want to go lie in the road. So I just walk away. But beyond that, and that truly by far and away is the number one question. But after that, probably the two biggest questions are, how do I do X on MailerLite or ActiveCampaign or whatever? Because the mechanics of it are really defeating for people. And of course, it's different. Every platform is different on everything that they can do and how you do it.
Right.
So I've had to get some facility with various systems. I'm mostly good with ActiveCampaign and MailerLite, but I'm adding ConvertKit in December. I'm going to do a deep dive there. So I really want to be able to help people with those levers, because they really ask those questions a lot. In the beginning, I was like, oh, I'm just going to be kind of, here's the philosophy of it. But people really want those. They want the levers. Right. And then the second thing is, I'm kind of actually weighing it in my head. They ask a lot about unsubscribes. People are super worried about unsubscribes, which, spoiler, don't worry, it's fine. Some people are not for you. It's fine. You're not for everyone. And then probably the other thing that they worry the most about is automated sequences, especially like a welcome sequence, because they know that they're supposed to do that, but like, what do I say? How many emails do I send? How to, they just don't know how to handle those sequences.
Right.
So those are the things I'm focusing on right now. And hopefully maybe I can solve them in a widespread enough way that people will have other questions, like other problems will surface, which would be nice.
Yeah. Those are great. Those are great.
Those are the biggies.
Okay. Big questions. And I don't know. I just think, is a long automated system better? Is a short one better? Does it vary?
It does.
Depending on who you are, what you write.
The kind of the game that everyone plays with Becca, where like if Becca says it depends, you take a shot. You can totally just play that game over here in the Ninja area as well, because that's the other thing, is that it's so much depends. So I really see my job, like what I do at Ninja, is to go kind of out there into the bigger internet marketing world and figure out all this crap that they're talking about. Yeah. And then I got to sit with it and translate it so that it sort of works for authors, right? Right. Because they're selling whatever, coaches, coaching courses, whatever, hope. That's the thing I always say. You know what they're selling? Hope. Yeah. But bringing that like internet marketer lingo back to us doesn't really work very well. So if you go out into the world and you say, and you Google welcome sequences, what you're going to get is essentially from almost every internet marketer, the same series of like 5 or 7 emails that the first one is to deliver the freebie. The second one is to establish authority. Well, what are we establishing authority about? You're an author. I mean, you want people to know you can write, I guess. Right. So in my head, I go, okay, that's the translation. It's not authority, but rather like mastery of your craft. So maybe you want to talk about books that made you want to be a writer, or a book in your genre that you really love and why. And you talk about it in an intelligent way, like a writer would. So that's the translation of that, like whatever. And the third email is like know, like, and trust, which is my least favorite phrase in the whole universe. But okay, so that's about like building a relationship with people. So what are you going to do as an author in that third or whatever email? I'm not prescriptive about the order, to establish a relationship and make people find you likable. And that's where you talk about the stuff you love. I've got an email in my welcome sequence. Of course, I am talking about Ninja, which isn't fiction, but actually, let's throw that out. I'm not going to tell you. In my I do have a one email, like welcome. That's not much of a sequence for my Tammi Labrecque romances, the ones that are written under my own name that no one reads, but it does get an occasional sign up, which is wild. And the first email talks in part, there's a little segment where I talk about my love of the movie Labyrinth, right? I love a lot of things, but Labyrinth got the spotlight in that one. So that's something that will make people identify with me if they like that. Probably not going to hate me if they don't, so it's fine. And as time goes on, I will certainly talk more about the other stuff I like. In my Ninja emails, for example, you're going to hear about Doctor Who, 1990s Nintendo, and SNES games, and Taylor Swift, and it just like my whole thing is just kind of, here's me, and I'm not for everyone. So back to the unsubscribe thing, I definitely get those. But that kind of establishing some kind of rapport with people is the analogy for that know, like, trust thing. So to answer your question, which I'm obviously not good at, it depends, because it depends on how much you have to talk to them about, how close are you to the beginning or further along in your journey, how many books are in your catalog. Did I already say that? If you've written, I got romance writers that show up and they've written 100 books, and I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be maybe a long sequence. How can we clump some of these books together? Maybe just send them to a page on the website, man. I don't know. This is a lot. But if you've only got, when my steamy romance pen name had a serial in progress, and that was all there was, she had one welcome email. What was she going to talk about? So it very, very much depends on how much of a deep dive you need to do, etc. The only prerequisites, and you can handle them in one email, is you just want to let them know who you are, what you write, why you write it, and how it's different from what everybody else does. Because that's really important. If you write romance, they're not hurting for romance authors.
No.
Or any author, or really any genre. So then you kind of set them apart. I write steamy romance with all the feels, and there's always X, like what food porn. This would be mine. Man, do I love to write about what people are eating. I love it. Or, whatever, small towns, or just your thing. Small towns is actually probably not enough. So you want kind of a unique sort of story about yourself, and however long it takes you to do that, and then tell them about your books if you have them. And that can get quite long.
It can. It can.
Quite long.
Well, that is like worth the price of admission right there. I mean, that was
exactly
awesome. So thank you for the summary.
You're welcome.
I always got kind of tripped up because, I started sending out emails before my book was even out. Because I got a newsletter before the first book was, I got a list before the book was even out. And I was like, the whole thing about giving value, I'm like, what? That tripped me up so much until I realized the value I gave was humor. I mean, or telling a funny story or whatever. That was my value. And
that is your value. I will embarrass you, by telling you that you are literally not even probably, you're one of the 3 funniest people I have ever known.
Oh, thank you.
Like, holy moly, man. I am coming to Jami for the laughs, for the lulls, and I'm getting them. So yeah, definitely. If you tell people, I write steamy small town romance about whatever and whatever, for you it would be like rock stars and sports guys. Sports guys, don't call them that. But you'll be rolling around with laughter. That's a promise you can make and keep, and not everybody can say that. That's unique to you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But that was just really hard. But once I realized that, I really leaned into that. And then it was not hard to write and it wasn't even long. My newsletters are not long. I mean, they're just funny stories or funny observations or whatever. And well, we'll talk about that, but that's the whole thing. Once you realize what your value is, then and you can lean into that, then that makes things a lot easier as far as what you put in them. I know Sara has found that too, because she gives a lot of just information about her mysteries, because that's what her readers love,
Yeah. I do a lot of the background stuff. Yeah. A lot of the background stuff. And I share a lot of recommendations of other authors that people would like. So, yeah. So I think I'm going to jump ahead to some questions we have specifically about newsletters.
Okay.
And then we may come back because I think you have so much valuable information. We may just camp out on newsletters and your tips and ideas. So one thing we wanted to ask you was about newsletter recommendations for new authors. So like you were saying, maybe they don't have a whole lot of huge back catalog. So what would you recommend for somebody who's new, who's just building their list?
For somebody who's just building their list, if you don't have any books at all, I think, like Jami said, she started building her list before the books came out. And I think that that's even more important than ever. Like I said, way a while ago, launches are unpredictable and weird. But one thing I can definitely tell you is that these days, launching on Amazon to absolute crickets, your book is dead in the water. Just forget about it. You either need to have some kind of seed newsletter. I don't care if it's 100 people that you can launch to and at least sell a handful of books. Or if you can find one, get an author that sells really well in your genre to just give you a shout out. That's my method. Not accessible to everybody. But so if you start building your list beforehand and you launch to 500 people, that's going to sell 30 books, let's say. Hopefully it's a lot more, honestly, but it's going to sell, say, 30 books. Awesome. Then Amazon sees that someone has bought it. They can make those also about connections, which they're not showing as much on our pages these days. And I hate that as a reader and as an author who uses it to kind of gauge what they're doing behind the scenes. Because, of course, their whole algorithm thing is just a black box.
Right.
We can only tell by when it spits out things like email recommendations or also bots. But behind the scenes, they're making some connections based on the people who bought your book and other stuff that they buy and learning what kind of book it is and who they might show it to if you're lucky. So I really think that launching just even to a tiny list is super important for people. It's part of why I wrote the Reader Magnet book. If you give a reader a cookie, because I call them cookies because I'm like an infant. But if you give a reader a cookie, and you do, say, a book funnel bundle or whatever that's called over on Story Origins, the similar group promo or whatever. If you do something like that on one of those distributors, then you obviously can only do it with kind of other beginners, which is fine, but you build up your list a little bit before the book is out. And then, like I said, if you launch to 500 people, way different. So I'm definitely recommending, if you don't have a book published yet, drop back and get 12,000, 15,000 words of some kind of reader magnet. There is a huge list in that book. This is not an infomercial, but the book's $5, so you can do it. There's a huge list of possible reader magnets in there, from prequels to epilogues and everything in between. Stuff that will appeal to readers who already know you, which is very useful for a lot of my authors, but there's also ones that will appeal to people who've never read anything you've written before. So if you can do that, get a reader magnet out there that is a complete story. You want people to know, not sample chapters. You want people to know that, like, you can tell a story. You can nail the landing. You can tell a satisfying story. Then you mail them a few times between when they join and when you finally get book one out, just telling them other books that they might like while they're waiting. Book one is in progress. Maybe you do a cover reveal if you're in one of the genres that likes that. Like, some do, some don't. Maybe you send them little snippets of the work in progress. Maybe send them a pre-order if you put it up for pre-order, etc. And you're just kind of keeping them aware of the book without just emailing every week saying book's almost here, because you obviously deliver value, right? And that's awesome. That helps so much. Like, just with the start, it helps so much. I definitely have some really recent case studies of people, let's call them people who listen to me and people who don't. And I will tell you, the people that don't category is occupied almost entirely by my actual friends who don't seem to think I know anything, which is hilarious. I'm like, people pay me for this, but okay. So right in the category of cozy mystery, I have some friends who recently launched and did not have any reader magnets and are spending a lot on ads and are not entirely happy with how their launches went. And I have a couple of students who've launched cozy mysteries to 500 or 600 or 700 people. And I know at least one of them, because I was talking to him the other day, his 2 books, he has 2 out now, and they're both at around 20,000 in the store, like the rank. No one's going to retire. on 2 books at 20,000 in the store, but it's a damn sight better than what you do when nobody's buying at all.
Right. Yeah.
Big difference.
Yeah. And that can help you, even if you have a small, loyal following.
Yes.
Small. That's all you really need to get going. So,
yeah. And if you do have just a few books, 1 or 2 books you've started, they're not maybe doing as great as you want, and you think, I probably should get on this newsletter thing everyone's banging on about. Same thing. Drop back 12 or 15,000 words. Pretend for a minute that you don't have any books. Do the bundles. Do the newsletter swaps. If you've made friends in your genre because you've got a couple books and you're doing a little networking, maybe approach a friend and say, would you send this to your list and just have them go download it?
Yeah.
In that case, I always actually make it so that people don't have to sign up to get because it's rude to tell someone, well, you send this to your list and I'll steal everybody. But if you send them one that doesn't have any sign up requirement, but really kills it with that call to action, and you wrote a good story, you will get a decent amount of conversion out of that. And it was free. So like free advertising. So just do the networking that you can and do like bundles and groups and so forth in the same way you would if you were new. Only now you have 2 books to tell them about. So in that welcome sequence, it's going to be, if you liked this cookie, you can just seamlessly move right on to book 1, which is in the same world or has the same characters or whatever.
Right. That's perfect. I love it. Love it. So what about recommendations for established authors that haven't really gotten on this newsletter newfangled thing, which is not newfangled?
Right? Hello, 1990.
Yeah, exactly.
So I guess maybe 96. But anyway, for established authors, I actually have so I have this whole course on automations, and the first 2 weeks is welcome sequences for authors with big catalogs. Not that doesn't mean people with no catalogs don't show up because they're like number 1 learner or whatever.
They just want the info.
They just want to know. But if you have a really big catalog, this is another one of those deals where I take the internet marketing info and kind of make it analogous to what authors are doing. If you join you pick up a freebie and they're going to start trying to like sell you their low ticket offer, then their coaching, or no, then their course, then their coaching, right? That's their offer ladder. Yeah. You don't have an offer ladder, but what you have is a catalog of books. So you do the exact same thing. You walk them through your catalog of books. Not in a like, and now buy this one, and now buy this one, but by telling people, the lesson in the class actually is called the story of your books. Right. So that's what you're going to do, is just tell them the story of your books. Here's the first book I wrote, and here's why I love it. Here's my best-selling series, and here's why I love it. And like, give them this sort of picture of what it is that they can expect from you. I mean, and they all link to where they can buy. You're not running a charity here.
Right.
It's not like a big heavy sell. It's just like here's how you can get to know me. And if you're some of my romance authors, my catalog of 100 books.
Yes.
That's a lot. Like, maybe go easy on, they don't need to hear about all. So that's it. It's just a matter of showing them what it is that you have for them. Okay. In an engaging and fun way. But I still also want people to always kind of have back pocketed those stories that we talked about before. Why you write, who you are, what you write, why you write it, and how it's different from the way everybody else writes it. That's kind of, I got to come up with an acronym for that. You know, that's your kind of your origin story. That's your why, if you will, of what you do. And if you can pop that out for people, and best case scenario, they can then regurgitate that to other people. You become a recommendation, right? Oh, she writes like these steamy kind of small town ones, but they are like laugh out loud funny. That's what you've been saying to your list this whole time. And eventually, Jami, that's what they're going to say to the people when they're pushing your books at them.
Right.
And so definitely have those as well, those kind of back pocket stories.
Yeah. Okay. So as most of you know, we started this podcast so we could get all the information. And so I'm going to use this as this is about me today. And so when my sister first got sick when she really got sick back in May, I emailed my list and just said, hey, like, we've gotten some really crappy news. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just letting you know that you may not hear from me. They have not.
You've been busy.
November. So what would you say for someone who hasn't, and prior to that, even though I don't release fast, like once a year, once 9 months, once a year, I was still emailing my list every 2 weeks.
Nice.
And I know. I'm a Tammi. I do listen to you, Tammi. But so now I've gone, almost 6 months without emailing at all. What does someone like me do to re-engage with a list of about 20,000 people, So
I wish I'd known back when Sara asked me what the most popular questions are. I wish I had remembered that is also a question I get a ton. Like it happens, particularly in a situation where people are just like, I don't know what to write. Yeah. You have a whole situation, but a lot of times people just ghost their list because, I don't know. Yeah. And I get it. I totally get it. Yeah. So my recommendations for you specifically, honestly, probably would be a little bit different for a lot of other people because
do the other people. We don't have to do me.
We're going to do you first. And I will tell you actually in my, my advanced automations course, I guess that's what I was going to say. I guess that's what I'll call it. That is what I call it. What the hell? Yeah. But in my advanced automations course, we do weekly workshops. And so 6 people will show up and we do exactly this. And honestly, people find it really illustrative to hear me talk to someone else, even though their situation isn't the same. Yeah. So we will talk about you too, because people will get it. Yeah. But the thing that sets you apart from someone who's just kind of ghosted their list because what do I have to say is twofold. First of all, you had a situation. Right. And second, you warned them ahead of time. So that's super helpful. They are kind of out there hanging a little bit and waiting to hear from you again. Right. Generally, when people ghost their list, what happens is they want to come back in and be like, oh, I'm so sorry. I was gone for so long. And here's a long explanation of all the reasons I wasn't here. And it was really tragic. And I'm just going to make sure that I talk to you regularly from now, blah, blah, blah. And my advice to them always is don't assume that people even noticed. I'm sorry. That's me.
Sure. I don't know if they did notice. Yeah.
But I think your people probably did notice, the ones who open and pay attention anyway, because you told them that you were leaving and that you would be gone a while and why. Mm-hmm. So that's a little bit different. For people who haven't given any warning, please do not slide in and tell everybody about, how your dog was sick and then you had to travel and everybody got COVID. And just don't be weird. You just show up and say, hey, long time no see. I haven't gotten in touch with you for 6, 8 months, 2 years, whatever. I haven't gotten in touch with you for a while. And sorry about that. Mm-hmm. Here's something cool, a link, a freebie, a reminder of your cookie, a recommendation of somebody else's book. And just expect to hear from me more regularly from now on and get the hell out. Don't be weird. Yeah. For you, Jami, though, honestly, I genuinely recommend that obviously you don't want to drag everybody down. You don't want to send them an email and everybody's crying me. I would. But you do want to show up and say, I told you back in May that my sister was sick and unfortunately she did pass last month. I'm regrouping, but I do want to start talking to you guys again because that's a highlight of my, my week is figuring out what to say to you. And I'm slowly starting back writing again. I would love to hear from you. Hit reply if you got this email and just let me know that you saw it. The reason that I say that is because your main problem is not going to be psychological or relationship problem with your fan base. It's going to be technological, just in that they haven't opened an email from you in a long time. It's going to be a little bit harder for you to land in an inbox. Right. So give them something super clicky. Give them a subject line that's very openable. And I don't honestly know what that is, but I bet you'll come up with something. Yeah. Subject line is very openable, something inside the email that's super, super clicky, and ask them to reply because that's the trifecta, technologically speaking, that will make Gmail, Hotmail, whoever love you. Okay. Then you get 50 billion replies. So don't promise to answer them.
Okay, good.
I mean, when your list is 200 people, who cares? You can answer them all. But I did send one exceptional email under my Steamy Romance pen name once way back. I asked a very answerable question that I cannot say on this podcast. And got 800 replies or some nonsense like that. And I had said I would answer them. And that was a whole situation. A lot of copy and pasting, thank God. Yeah. So ask them a question, give them something super clicky, and make sure it's really, really openable because that's going to be it. Okay. Actually, those 3 things, really openable, give them something clicky, and ask for a reply would apply to the other people as well. There's always a technological problem. You get a big ding in deliverability when you haven't sent in a while.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing, like, because she passed away a month ago yesterday, and I was going to send an email like the week after she passed away to say, but honestly, the thought of getting those emails back, replies back, and feeling like I had to answer them was just, I couldn't do it. I just was not in the headspace to do it. But if I don't say I'm going to answer them, then I don't have to.
No, you can
in advance for thinking of me or something like that, because that's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah, you definitely can. Set the expectation right there. Just hit reply and let me know that you got this email. But I expect that'll be a lot of you. So don't be offended if I don't reply. And then they're like, okay, I won't expect it, but they'll still probably do it. And just by virtue of human nature, they're all going to want to say sorry. That's how people are. So they're going to want to. That's how it is. Which obviously that's not, well, there's a positive. Like, what am I going to, like, what? But it is just kind of human nature. So you will probably get a lot of replies, and that's going to help you. As mercenary and weird as that is to say.
Yeah. Well, and I have always put other people's books in my newsletter. Every time I send out, I have someone's book. So that makes it clickable too, that they would click and stuff. So, okay, that's cool.
For your people, especially with the way that they go through books, romance readers, God love them. I love them so much. Sometimes the way I talk about them, you'd think I don't, because I'm always like mocking them, but I am a romance reader. So when I am mocking them, I am talking about me. Me, I'm crazy. And so, especially with your people where they go through books so quickly, giving them a recommendation. Finally, I just finished the book 10 minutes ago.
Yeah. Okay. Well, cool. Well, thank you. That really does help. I think it would help other people, because I can't be the only one that hasn't email. Prior to the email in May, it had been like 6 weeks since I emailed them, and so I did title that with "No, I'm not dead." That was the subject line, and so I can't really use that or anything like that.
No, we're definitely not going to use the word dead. Oh my God. Seriously though, I'm a crier, as you know, from pre-recording. Yes. And I would just totally cry when I got your email.
So I'll do something else. But I think that's really good. I'm not great at subject lines, though. I will say
I'm still not dead, but like, are you kidding me? Like, what are you going to say? Oh my God. I'm so sure.
I know. So, P.S. My sister would think that was funny. So
good. I'm so glad. Totally it is kind of funny, but like, oh my God, oh my God.
She would think that was funny.
Good Lord.
We're not going to use
when I sent an email last summer. I guess it was just a little over a year ago, actually. A good friend of mine who was an indie author, Dawn Lee McKenna was her name. She wrote like these very like Southern atmospheric sort of thrillers. Suspense is more actually accurate. She passed away from cancer, because cancer is a bleeped out word. So she passed away, and I sent an email to my list, which also got me the highest unsubscribe rate I've ever had. So I don't know, man. It was not like, she was a really funny person. She would have been in the top 3 with you, before she passed away. So I sent an email, and it just talked about a lot of the things that she liked. She loved Martin Sheen and the specific band and all of this kind of stuff, and some stuff she didn't like. And there was a little graphic she had done about a spider that was funny. Anyway, at the end, I said something to the effect of like, go hug somebody that you love. And in the absence of somebody that you love, I don't know, make a stranger's day.
Yeah.
And then I said, P.S. Dawn would have loved that joke.
Yes.
So if you can pull off a joke in that email and then just say, Joni would have loved that joke, people will totally love that.
Yeah.
Or they'll unsubscribe in droves. I don't know.
And that's fine. It's fine. It's a big list.
It really was my highest unsubscribe rate. I was like, oh my God, it wasn't even a downer. It was a very celebratory email.
Yeah. And mine would be too. So so that's great though. Anything else like just think about your average author that's struggling with email. Is there anything else we can give them today to either lead them to your courses or books, or make them feel a little bit better about what they're doing?
So, spoiler, I'm kind of dismantling my entire course empire into something smaller and more bite-sized for people. One of the things I think that's really prohibitive, for example, is that if you want to learn about automations, how it's been set up for the last few years is you can do nothing. You can learn nothing from me. Or you can take it's my most expensive, and I'm putting that in quotes because it's $299, which is not a lot in course world. But a lot of indie authors are bootstrapping. So I always have tried to keep it as low as I could. But you can give me the $299 and then learn welcome sequences, list hygiene sequences, launch sequences, fun automations like book birthdays. Like it's this whole giant thing, right? Well, for goodness sakes, maybe people would just like some pieces of that is what I have finally come to realize. So I'm kind of breaking everything down, and there's not really going to be a ton for people to buy, but I do have some cool freebies.
Oh,
so
that's
the
great.
Best way to do it, they're just little sort of checklists, little cheat sheets on. I have one called 10 tips for writing emails people want to read. So there you go. newsletterninja.net/newsletter is where you can get that. You have to sign up for the list. Sorry. I know that's pretty meta, but there you go. The list is good and you'll like it.
It's worth it. Yeah. It's worth it.
So that gets you that cheat sheet. And then I deliver the others as the sequence goes on. So there's one on subject lines, and there's a very new one, which I've just made, which is how to get your social media followers to join your newsletter. There's some tips in there for pulling everybody back in.
Yes, that's a great one. Yes.
I think it's super important for us all to be on social media, but these days it seems like a new platform crops up all the time. And it's not like one goes away. It's not the one in, one out rule for your closet or whatever. So there's just more and more and more all the time. Am I on Pinterest? Am I on TikTok? Am I on Instagram? Blah, blah, blah. I have to be everywhere. Well, what if you could kind of just take your newsletter content, repurpose it out a little bit for social media, and always be driving those people back towards you.
Yes.
And then God freaking forbid you drop off social media for a little while, or a platform goes haywire or gets, bought by Elon Musk. I'm just saying. Or you get kicked off, God forbid. It could. Imagine a world where, or you get kicked off Facebook because we know that they'll yank accounts and stuff for reasons we don't understand.
Right.
And there's not really any recourse.
Right.
I actually saw a post from an author whose name escapes me, which is a bummer, saying this. It said, "This is why I have a newsletter," and then it said that it was a Facebook post, and then it said that he had lost his Instagram account and he didn't even know why. And there's really no appeal possible, so I won't be on Instagram anymore. If you're not on my newsletter, you really need to get over there, because that's where I'll always be able to find you. Right. So those are the 3 cheat sheets: the what to put in the email, subject lines, and how to get your social media followers on.
That's great.
So
and then they'll be able to hear about all the other stuff I'm doing.
Right.
So that was newsletterninja.net/newsletter. That
is correct.
Okay. Awesome. So I have 2 quick questions, because as we wrap up, we've kind of been going for a while. So, but I wanted to ask about magnets.
Okay.
So, what is your opinion on a magnet that is not fiction, like maybe like for a cozy author, maybe a cookbook, or do those work? Would you recommend those, or would you recommend fiction?
I think that they work best for people who already like your books. And in that case, I think they work like gangbusters, actually. If you have built kind of a world in your cozies, and they're like food cozies, cupcakes or baking or whatever that business is, and then you give them, here's a little cookbook, I think that they really love that. They make the leap really easily. Some other things that are not, a story would be like, family trees, if you write like Regencies or family sagas or whatever. Maps, if you write epic, like, or sword and sorcery fantasy, people love a map. There's all kinds of cool stuff that you can do. You can do swag, as long as it's not tremendously expensive, obviously, like a bookmark or something. That kind of stuff is great. It does tend to only work for people who know you, because they're kind of becoming fans anyway, and they want like adjunct material about your world. For people who are coming in, who've never heard of you, I feel like it's always got to be a story. And I just want it to be complete, but it can be super short. So that's also good. Cozy people are probably the ones who push back the most when I tell them to write a reader magnet, which is funny. But maybe you'll identify and be like, yeah, I totally agree. They're the ones that I always hear say, oh, but what would I even write a reader magnet about? Like, they feel, I think, like, fantasy authors can do like a prologue about the history of the, world that they've built. And romance writers can just write a little romance about a side character or an extended epilogue or whatever. Cozy authors give me, I think, maybe more trouble than anyone else.
Just troublemakers.
But you totally can. The whole premise of your cozy, here, I'll give you a reader magnet idea. The whole premise of your cozy is that you've got this nosy sleuth, right? Like, she's not a cop. There's no reason for her to be involved in this stuff, except that she's nosy. She's nosy. Yeah. She's like nosy. So, okay, that's great. She probably didn't become nosy yesterday. So was there a super low stakes thing that happened maybe back in high school, or there was a weird like mystery at her, I don't know, wedding? Like, be crazy with it and tell about a time that she had to solve a little mini mystery. Maybe we don't need a dead body in this one, maybe, whatever, but some place where those tendencies of hers showed up. Yeah. I feel like I also have a cozy author. I can't remember if it was a student or a friend. I think it actually was a friend who listened to me for a change, who wrote they wrote sort of a prequel about the main character, our cozy sleuth, about her mom, who back in the day was also a nosy Nelly and got herself into trouble, with the idea being kind of like, that's where she learned it from, like watching her mom. And the mom is also a character in the book. She's kind of always meddling and giving her opinion about whatever. So the prequel was about her, for example. So there's two ideas right there, guys. You can do it.
I will say that one of my best, like at the end reader magnets is I had written, it's in the second book, and I had written it about a wedding. Like, in the book, they talk about this thing that happened at this wedding. And so I had written it, but it was going to have to be a flashback. And to me, it just was too long, and I don't love flashbacks, but I had written the thing. And so I give that away.
Perfect. Yeah. Like, I literally love that so much.
And it is my best one.
That does not surprise me, because you get to the end and go, do you want to hear about what happened at the wedding? That thing that they mentioned, and it puts a little hook in a reader's brain, right? And then you go, do you want to hear about whatever? And they're like, yeah, of course I do. That is so good. If you can do what I've heard it called, and what I call it, is a side story. Yeah. So it's not really a spin-off, it's just a thing that took place outside the action. And honestly, I mean, like you said, it slowed down the book. It didn't feel like it should be there,
didn't feel like it should be in there.
So just plucking it out, and the story is perfectly fine without it, is a really good sign that it's additional material.
Yeah. And in fact, going forward, I think when writing, I'm going to make, not every time, but I'm going to be thinking about that when I'm writing, so that I can have something at the end, especially for a first in series sort of thing.
So this is what I call baking it in, because I'm hilarious, right? So if you bake that cookie in to the thing as you're writing it, it's really organic, and it feels very natural for people to want to do it. I give an example. I do a whole long case study in the book about an urban fantasy series by an author named Ginevra Black. And that urban fantasy series has a side story like yours, Jami, is the reader magnet. So over the course of the story, the character's a necromancer, but she doesn't know it. Not knowing you have powers is urban fantasy 101. She's a necromancer. She doesn't know it. She accidentally reanimates her dead hamster in the first scene. But she doesn't know. So she's like, he doesn't look so good. I think he's sick. And they take him to the emergency vet, and they leave him there. So then the book progresses, whatever. We don't talk about him for a while, Hervé, the hamster. And then partway through the book, after she has figured out who she is, she's got a zombie sidekick, hijinks have ensued, and someone mentions the hamster, and she's like, oh, crap. We took a zombie hamster to the vet. And she and her sidekick look at each other, and they take off. The next time you see them, there's a chapter in between from someone else's point of view. The next time you see them, they're sitting in his car with an empty hamster cage. And she's like, let's not ever talk about that again. So when you get to the end and it says you want to find out when they went to get Hervé at the vet. That is a no-brainer. People want that so bad. And it's a hook. It's hugely hooky. And I have not been able to engineer any of that for myself for anything I wrote. But man, I'm keeping my eye out. I got to figure it out. Number one, ideation will serve me well there, I think.
That's great. Sara, did you have another question?
Yeah, you said two. I have one short question. So talking about replies, it's
Sara's thing.
Jamie's laughing hysterically in the background. So I have set up a lot of things in my automations to ask people like, hey, reply and let me know what first mysteries you read. What mysteries did you love? So now I'm getting to the point where it is difficult for me to answer everybody. So what would be your advice? Like if you're grown to the point that it's difficult to answer, but I feel like that's something that if I emailed an author and they replied back, oh, I would love it.
You would love it. They will love it. I'm trying to figure out what it's called here. Okay. So here's what I did during that thing.
Crazy
with
response,
Stevie pen.
right?
Yeah, it was nuts. So it was a question about the Avengers, which it was basically which superhero. It was steamy
like
romance. So,
yes.
Figure it out. And it had a dirty word right in the title. I mean, like she didn't pull any punches. So there was that. So which Avenger do you think, a lot of responses. Turns out people have very strong opinions about that immediately. And the answer is Thor. I just want you all to know that right off the gate.
Well, that's good to know. Note that down, Sarah.
That is like, it was like 92%, you guys. I am not kidding. It was a rout. It was like nobody else was even close. But anyway, so people replied and mostly said Thor, at which point, like, what I did was use what at the time Gmail called it canned responses. Now they call them templates. But you basically type something in your Gmail and then there's a little, 3 dots down at the bottom, I think it's called a hamburger. I don't know why. So you click on that and you can create a template and it will just take the text that you put in that email and it will save it. Yeah. And then so the next time someone says Thor, you hit reply, hit that template, done. You can also do the same thing just by copying and pasting. Frankly, it's probably a little faster now that I think about it. But sometimes I had to write something else and then I have to come back to the template. So you just copy and paste the same answer and just get through it. If you told them you would reply. And certainly if it's something that seems like it would expect a reply. Yeah. So that's what I did. Just the Thor answer. I remember vividly because I pasted it 4,500 times. And it was, you won't be surprised to learn that he took an early and decisive lead. And that was my answer. And then there were some people who were kind of one-offs and them I replied to individually. There was a lady who said He-Man, which for years I've been like, that's a cartoon, ma'am. But I actually really just found out that there was a live action He-Man with, I think, Rutger Hauer. And so I get it. Now I get it.
Yeah.
So just do some copying and pasting and call it good. But if you can, like in Jamie's case, where we know she's going to get a swarm of responses and she doesn't necessarily want to reply to all of them because it's a little bit of a downer. Yeah. You can just say, don't be upset if I don't reply. I know there will be a lot.
Yeah.
And let it go.
Okay. Good to know.
That's but
good.
Soliciting,
I don't want to let anyone down.
No, but soliciting replies is hugely, hugely important if you can do it. So we talk a lot, like in the circles I run in anyway, about things like spam filters and what kind of things get you red flagged and all of that kind of stuff. And those things are important to think about. And obviously they do matter, but they honestly don't matter quite as much as they used to because the AI is getting, I was going to say smarter, but it's not getting smarter, but it's getting somewhat more sophisticated in that it is better able to judge actual engagement, which is going to come from click through and from replying and having conversations with you. It's less concerned and you're more able to get away with words like free or links to Amazon or whatever. If your engagement in terms of clicks and replies has always been high, the robots love you a little bit better. So replies are great, but yes, when 800 of them land in your inbox, it's awful. I get a ton of replies over at the Ninja inbox. Every time I send a newsletter, I get a lot of replies from people. One, because my newsletters are kind of funny and people will often reply and be like, that was hilarious. But also people reply and just say like, I'm replying, so your engagement's good. And I'm like, oh my God. Thank you. Like, thank you.
No, thanks.
Thank you. Because my open rates are awesome. And I love that. But also like, oh, so I get it. It can be really hard, but I do try to answer everybody.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Well, Jamie, did you have anything else?
Nope. That's it.
Yay.
That's it. It was awesome having you, Tammi. It was just so good.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very excited to have been here.
Well, let's tell this funny story.
Okay.
So when we first started the podcast, I messaged Tammi to say, hey, or about a year ago. I don't know when it was, but it was a while ago. I messaged, hey, would you like to be on the podcast? Tammi messaged me about just a couple of months ago and said, I just saw this and I've been deeply offended that I hadn't been asked to be on the podcast.
My feelings were so hurt. I was like, Jami and I are friends. Why doesn't she ever ask me to be on our podcast? And I'm like, that's totally my nature, by the way. I would never think there's a glitch. She thinks I'm too busy. Like, I would never think of something positive. I'm just like, Jami secretly hates me. And that's so sad because I really like her. And that's just, I've been carrying that for like however long since you sent that message. Like, people are crazy. And I'm talking about me. So I'm really glad that I got to be here because now I'm happy again.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was awesome.
So the moral of that story is check your email.
Check your messages.
Check your messages. I have no idea why I didn't see it. Oh my God. I have no idea. Like it was even still marked as unread. So it's not like it was right there. Whatever, Tammi.
Well, we will have all the links in the show notes, and they will be at wishidknownthenpodcast.com. So thanks for listening. Thanks for being here, Tammi. And we will see everybody next week. Oh, and thanks to Alexa Larberg for editing and producing the podcast, and Adriel Wiggins for doing the admin. See y'all next week.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Wish I'd Known Then podcast. We hope this episode inspired you, empowered you, and made you laugh a little bit too. If you loved it, tell your friends about it. And if you feel so inclined, leave us a review. We look forward to being with you again next week.